All right. So the next portion which I wanted to explain was group by. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just click on this group by. Right now I've selected this particular column over here, film. So if I click on group by, it's going to take film as the column over here. But you can override this. You can say that, I want to select it in some other manner over here, right? Now I'll just repeat this. Group by is nothing but aggregating things over here, right? And aggregation would mean that, for example, you want to see something per genre of the movie. You want to see something per year of the release of the movie and something like that. We'll move on to that. So it's like aggregating the data. I want to see how much money has horror movies has made as compared to comedy movies, right? So that is where group by comes into picture over here. Now, grouping by film doesn't make sense at all because every film will have a different name. Group by works better in all those columns where there are common entries. For example, these two comedy, these will be grouped together, right? The first thing that I like to understand is, let's say, number of movies. I'll say number of movies. I'll go for number of movies and I'll say count rows. Count rows of what? Which rows? I count and I'll select genre over here. Sorry, I'll select genre over here. So I'm basically grouping by what? Genre. Okay. Now, if I click on the column, right, it's going to, I don't think any column needs to be selected. That's okay. I'll just click on OK. See what happens. What happens is it's going to group the data based on genre because that's the column that I've selected over here. If I click on OK, now you can see how many movies are there of each and every genre. Comedy, drama, romance, animation, action and fantasy. These are the case over here. In fact, I don't think it's ranked it. It is not ranked it, but we can always use what? Sort values. We can always use sort values over here, isn't it? And we can now see that comedy followed by romance, followed by drama, followed by animation, fantasy and action are the total number of movies, or the highest number of movies I can see is basically comedy movies. So I can say that, okay, comedy movie does really well when it comes to grossing, that is when it comes to earning money worldwide. Okay. Now obviously I can, undo whatever changes I've done over here, right? But yes, if you want to convert a data into a grouped data, for example, you can group by genre, and this time let me count how I'll go for sum, right? I'll go for sum of, and let me give this a name of aggregation. Let me call it aggregation. Okay, let's give a common name to it. Aggregation. Okay. I want to sum it up, and based on what? Based on worldwide gross. Let me see how much gross amount every genre has made. Okay. So obviously this doesn't make sense to me because I just recalled that comedy movies obviously had highest number. So there are very high chances that the worldwide gross will be highest for comedy. We'll have the same order as we saw, right? So I'll just click on this and oh, it's different, slightly different. Comedy is still topping the chart, but drama is grossing more as oh, I'm so sorry, I have not arranged it yet. Let me sort it out. If I sort it, I'll say that, okay, the order remains the same: comedy, romance, drama, animation, fantasy and action, because this is the order in which, these movies were, they had the number of movies in this particular order. So sum doesn't make sense to me in grouping the data. What will make sense then? I'll just group the data genre wise, and instead of this, let me keep it as count only. The name doesn't matter. New column name doesn't matter. I'll go for average. Now it gives me a good, glimpse of, okay, on an average. Now 100 movies, the average is going to basically average out things, isn't it? So 100 movies, 200 movies, 300 number of movies will not matter now. I'm going to see how much on an average a film make of a certain genre. Okay. And I'll do the average of what? I'll average, let's say average of worldwide gross. I click on OK. Now I see that, okay, now I'll just sort this. And now I see, although animation were the less number of movies, but the average gross made by animation is higher. In fact, comedy movie, they were higher in number, but average gross revenue made by comedy movies is lesser as compared to animation, fantasy and romance. So fantasy and romance is anyways, on an average grossing more than comedy movies. This is good data which is coming up after grouping. Okay, so I can just undo this. Okay, I can just undo this and come back. This is what is called as grouping the data. Now you can group whatever you want based on whatever you want. You can group, let's say year wise, count rows, how many movies were released year wise. So I click on this OK, and I can see the okay, this is the year wise number of movies released over here. And then of course we can do n number of things. Now sky's the limit. We can now, I'm so sorry, I think I have mistakenly removed this. Right, I think it's done now. Cool. So this is the case over here. This is the function of group by. I would suggest that go and take up a data and then explore this function further. I think the more you explore, the more you understand and the more fun you will have with this. Now I think we have already seen use first row as headers. We can now move on to the next important portion, which is replace value. Replace value replaces the value. Simple as that. For example, you want to replace something. For example, let's say I'll say that I'll replace comedy with something. For example, I'll just put in comedy over here. Comedy with, let's call it rom-com. I want to replace it with rom-com. Let's say if I click on OK, the entire comedy will be replaced by rom-com. Again, uncheck. Oops. I think I should be careful in undoing things. Okay. Now, right. So that's the case over here. I mean, you can replace any value with any other value as long as you know that the column that you selected has that particular value that needs to be replaced. If you want to replace something which doesn't exist in the column, nothing will happen to the column. Right. For example, I want to replace, for example, ABCD with PQR. Oops, it's not typing it. PQR, let's say PQR. Now obviously nothing will happen. Although OK will be there and everything will be there, but there was no ABCD. I hope so. Right, there was no ABCD over here. Nothing got changed, but the steps will be recorded over here. Replaced values. All right, we can undo it. That's the point. This is the transform portion which is there in the home tab. Right. Now next, the other two portion in which I can combine multiple data and I can actually go for AI insights over here. Let's discuss this in the next video. Next video will discuss about combining and AI insights.